the recording was still going, so it probably doesn't affect it. Okay.
We hope.
Yeah, we hope. Well, the lines are going up and down, so that's the most important thing. Okay, so Muriel, they hype her up. Defending champion, fastest qualifying time, all this stuff. And then keep in mind, like, I have no idea how this event's about to look because I've never actually watched this before. And I'm sure I've watched it, but didn't know what it was. Sure. So then they line up at the gates and then they come out. Choom. They're going. And then all of a sudden, like, the other two are kind of out in front a little bit and she's trying to catch up. And they're talking about, oh, wow, this is unlike her. You know, she normally has a fast start.
Yeah.
And then, so you can tell she's like really rushing, trying to like catch up. And then boom, slides right as she's landing, slides her ski into the girl in front of her. They tangle up. She spins out, crashes in. And then, so the sport is like the first two to finish win.
Yeah,
you know, of
exactly.
every one of these heats. And I'm like, that's it?
Yeah.
She's done? It's over? So here you are, like, expecting, you know, because it's not like in, say, the NBA or something. Everybody knows LeBron. He's the famous guy. You got to beat him 4 times for that to be over. So this sport is insane. Like, in the blink of an eye, something you worked for 4 years, just gone.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me multiple times. It's just like, it's the way it is. Of course, everything can change, and that's why it's also so exciting, because people like to watch it, because anything can happen. You know, you have 4 people that are racing first to finish, go to the next round, but it's, you know, it's unusual that the favorites are always the ones to win.
Right.
So it's like
that is interesting.
Yeah,
it's not like a lot of sports.
No, so that's why it's really cool to watch. And sometimes you can be lucky, sometimes, you know, unlucky. It just kind of depends. And you know, there's a lot of tactics involved, and it's there's a lot more to it than you can kind of just see when you watch it.
All right, and so just to give people the intro now, so your name is Pam Thorburn, and you are a former British national ski champion. Yeah. And you were the only, I want to get this correct, and you can definitely correct me, but you were the only female skier who competed in both World Cups in Alpine and ski cross. Is that what it was?
So I'm the only British female that did like a World Cup Alpine and ski cross. And there's only a few of us in the world that did both.
Man, that's insane. Because there's multiple different types of alpine skiing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you maybe explain that just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So your alpine skiing is the more traditional ski racing that people kind of have seen probably on TV. Like in the US, you guys have Lindsey Vonn and Michaela Schiffer, and like totally the best of the best.
Bodie Miller. Right?
Bodie Miller.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So cool. So you have like a slalom, giant slalom, Super G, downhill, and a combined. It's like 5 events. They're all under alpine skiing. And I competed in all of those, mostly the speed events, which are the like really fast,
scary ones.
Yeah, the really fun ones.
They said in one of those about videos, they said that in order to keep the skiers safe, they try to keep the course designed to where it limits their speed to 150 to 160 kilometers per hour. Like, only 150 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, exactly. So that like the really fun thing, of course, is that you do get like really high speeds, but then the forces of like when you're in a turn and the different courses and things are really big. So when you do crash, you know, there's, you know, sometimes, the majority of times, something can happen. You know, you twist a knee the wrong way or whatever. Or worse. Mm-hmm. But that's just part of the sport.
And so I already know the answer to this question. I shouldn't have done so much research, but how many injuries have you had from skiing?
Well, I mean, actual injuries, I'm not sure.
Surgeries.
Yeah, so I had 13. I will have I'm already scheduled in for 14 and 15.
Man.
So yeah, it's been quite some injuries, but I really always in my kind of career, I went from being like taking maybe a little bit too much risk. I like that kind of line. I always was pushing over the line a little bit too much, and I also, a lot of the time just came back a little bit too early, or I always wanted to just compete, even if I wasn't ready. So like that's one thing that I think I look back in my career and I think as a coach now, for me, I want to try and help people not do that, right? Like only do things, and especially things like that, when they're ready and when they're fit and healthy and 100% to go, because otherwise the risk is way too much. And
Absolutely. And you said something pretty interesting in an Instagram post of yours that I saw. It was kind of an emotional post. It was the one, I guess, where you announced your retirement from skiing. But you said something in there where, so you had your goal, right, of where you wanted to get with skiing. And then obviously when you're in the thick of it, you think like, I still haven't gotten to that goal. Like I haven't accomplished my mission. And so you keep pushing yourself physically and mentally and in all these different ways in order to get to that goal. But it's only later when you have some distance, when now you realize, wait a minute, I actually accomplished quite a lot of shit here that I can be pretty proud of.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where when you're in it at the time, you're just constantly, thinking of the end goal, right? And everything is for that. And, I think I put that since I was 15, just before I left school. That's all I was focusing on. And it's all I focused on really until actually this year, when I really decided, okay, enough is enough. But I think that was also something that it was a good thing and a bad thing, because it was something that just made me keep pushing at times where I probably shouldn't be pushing.
Right.
So I should, it was hard to, when you have people whispering in your ear, like, oh, just do one more, or, oh, you're okay. It's especially with things like concussion. So I have a lot of problems with that now. And, when it's an injury that people don't see, they can't see anything, they're kind of always more like, oh, it's okay, you'll be fine. Just go. And of course, what I know now from like brain injuries or those kind of things, it's
right. And the CTE stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole world of problems. And now that's what I'm dealing with. Like, and I just turned 35, and I have a lot more problems than I really should.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that's quite hard to take, because you're going for something, but maybe it wasn't the best idea to do this or to do that. And
yeah, but you don't want to live with regrets, So
but that's the thing, right? You don't.
So at the time you're trying to not have regrets by doing it.
Yeah.
Then you get to later in life, like, oh, wait a minute,
You're
I have
like,
the other regrets.
Yeah, I mean, you always have like two ends of the spectrum. You have the some people saying like, you shouldn't do that, you'll never walk again. Mm-hmm. And you have the other ones, and they're like, oh, come on, it's gonna be fine. So I'm like one on each shoulder. And I'm always like, oh, it's gonna be fine. And absolutely, I don't, like, people ask me all the time, do you regret anything or whatever? I just think that it's good to learn from it. And I think it actually makes me a better coach now that I went through these experiences. I know what can happen, what, in different cases. And that's why I want to take that into my coaching.
Well, it's interesting because, so if you look at, we'll get back into the differences between ski cross and alpine skiing, because when you watch people doing alpine skiing, like you go to a ski resort, whatever, and you see the people who are actually good skiers, they don't really fall a lot. You know what I mean? Like, you see people doing these black diamonds and they're not falling, you know, like, so you would think like, oh, if you're a great skier, then, you wouldn't get hurt all that much, except for maybe the knee problems and back problems. I know it's kind of common for snowboarders and skiers. But like, so watching, and that's why I want to get back into the difference, because watching you guys and what happens in those falls, I mean, I don't really know how to ski. I know how to slide down a mountain really fast. That's what I know how to do, because I can't really turn very well. Like, by the end of the day when I do it, I have some kind of a little bit more bearings. But the last time I went was in Switzerland, in Jungfrau. And a couple of times, like, it was so insane that this one time I remember when because literally, like, I'm sliding down these slopes, and then I'm just like out of control, trying not to hit people, and then I just kind of try to crash in some controlled manner. Like, this is literally what I do, and or have done in the past. I plan to go to ski school in the future to not do that anymore, to try to protect the people around me at least.
Exactly.
But so in one of these crashes, right? Like, I just crash and I turn in such a way, and the ski gets caught, and I felt my knee just totally turn. And I mean, from every sport I've ever played, obviously you have those moments where you feel knee pain. Oh no, like, what did I do? Like, I'm immediately thinking ACL is like torn or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the first problem was getting my ski out of the snow, and it was a really snowy day. But anyway, 10 minutes later, I was totally fine. Like there was nothing wrong with my leg. Very, blessed that was kind of the way that went. And then 2 or 3 other of those falls, I remember my head, like I kind of remember seeing the sky as my head's going backwards, and then boom, and it's like so much pain, and you just kind of feel that shake.
Yeah.
And I remember, so when I started, watching the ski cross videos, because it's very common for people to fall, to crash, because you're going so fast and you're racing people.
Yeah.
So to take those kind of hits, you're almost like a football player.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, the
terrible thing.
I mean, the difference actually, Alpine, like the Alpine skiing that I did, the speeds like downhill and Super G, you're going a lot faster in those than you are in ski cross. So ski cross is a lot slower for that, but it's the features on the course and on the track, and the fact that you're racing 3 other people that are doing
those bumps that you're going over.
Yeah, so there's like things called rollers, and there's the jumps. So the main difference between the jumps and Alpine is that you ride the jumps and they follow the terrain of the hill, right? So like they will go pretty far because you're going fast, but you will always go with the kind of shape of the mountain, right? Where you're going. But in freestyle and ski cross, the jumps are built to go up.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different way to learn how to jump. So when I first switched over, I was like, oh, it's okay, I know how to jump, like it's fine. And I hit this first jump and I was like, oh my God, I'm looking up to the sky. I've never done this before. So you have to really learn how to jump, but because it sends you so high, there's a lot of things that can, you're a lot higher from the ground. So when you come down and you're not landing well, a lot of it kind of hurts.
Yep.
So there's those features, and they're building the courses so technical. So like big kind of cutouts and, really like big gaps that you have to clear. And if you don't clear one, you don't have enough speed to go off the next jump, and if you won't make the landing and things like that. So it's very technical. And there's
so much to it.
Yeah, there really is. And they do that at the start section to separate the field. So because if it was too easy a start, you would be all on top of each other.
Oh.
So they try to make
it a strategic thing.
Yeah, they try to make it as technical as possible. So there's a little bit of space between the riders before they hit a first turn or the first jump. So that's kind of how they play it. But it's
and then in the case of Marielle, there's no space.
No, but it's so hard to like nail it, especially every time. So you should see these, the races that everybody can see, that's after all the training days. Oh. So you should see it the first training day when people, like, we turn up. There's, of course, testers, and sometimes we watch the course testers, and it's a shit show. It's a total disaster. And especially, like, if you go from, you have your first training day and you're like, whoa, okay, this jump actually needs to change because it's too dangerous, or it's too long, or it's too high, or kicky, or something. And they, things will change, but then maybe it will snow overnight. So you go into the next training day and it's way slower, right? Or it freezes overnight, or it's way faster the next day. So then it's
like golf at this point,
right? So then it's a whole new track. So you're like, okay, I've got a new kind of thing to think about today. So we've had usually, if it works well, we've had like a couple days training on the track before the competition goes. So by the competition day, you should be kind of dialed into how the track is running. But I mean, when you're against other people, it's just anything goes, really.
I know, it's insane. It's interesting because so like it's a little bit like skateboarding in a sense that there's no way to practice it really without risking your bodily harm.
Right.
And it's been kind of a big movement in the NFL because we spoke about the CTE factor before. That's one of the leading places where they're doing a ton of research on CTE. And so it used to be kind of this old school thing of, for NFL teams, you want to practice with full pads and you want to hit each other during the week and stuff. And of course, their games are on Sunday. And the idea was that if they practice that way, they'll play that physically. And that's the only way to get them to be that physical. And then over time, the thinking, like when you look at the injuries and stuff like that, the thinking kind of started to change. Well, actually, their bodies have very limited lifespans. So we should actually be saving the physical, problems that they're going to encounter for the actual games that they're getting paid for.
Yeah.
So then you had this big, kind of trend of, okay, let's dial down the physicality and just work on, like you said, the technical stuff. But for you, that's what's kind of, I'm sure there are some things maybe you can do without, going full speed, down one of these jumps or something, but there's not a lot you can do, it would seem like, to practice without risking harm.
Yeah. I mean, what is the big thing is, in ski cross compared to alpine skiing, we run the men and the women on the same track. And in Alpine, we have totally separate tours. So the men have their own tours and tracks and the women have their own. And what we have is the track has to be able to take the fastest man and the slowest woman, right? So, but those two riders are riding pretty differently, actually. So usually it's always a pretty big course, the World Cup courses, because it's exciting and that's, it has to be a certain level. But for the women especially, they have to ride really hard from training number one, or they're not even going to make it to the landing of the jumps.
Right.
So it's like you have to commit 100% from that first training run, or you're actually risking a lot. So So it's like you have this kind of fight with yourself where you're like, yeah, but I'm not feeling good today because I don't know how that's going to run. But you just kind of have to do it because, otherwise it's a lot more dangerous to go in cautious and hesitant because you're going to be slower and you're not going to make features. And so it's kind of it's a tough one actually for that mentally. It's a big game.
No, it is. I think the only thing that I have in my mind maybe that I could relate to it is skateboarding and maybe like diving, because it's like if you've ever, my first dive off a high dive ever, I just did a total belly flop because it was like I couldn't consciously make myself do the flip. I was so afraid of breaking my neck or something. And it's the same in skateboarding. Like I'm not a skateboarder or anything like that, but I did it in middle school, so you kind of learn the basics. And that's one of the first things they teach you is like you gotta just go for it. If not, you're gonna hurt yourself because it's that kind of pull up moment, that is where the harm is. Yeah, it's very similar in that respect. Like when you're dropping into like a pipe or something, it's the same thing. When we're dropping into the course, we you have to just commit. Otherwise, bad things can happen. No, for sure. So let's go back to the beginning because I want to circle around quite a few things. But you started skiing when you were 3 years old, and you said in Austria, and because your parents were both big skiers, right? Yeah, my parents are big skiers. We went to Austria for my first ski holiday, and I have a brother who's a skier as well. And it was a pretty heavy start. Like my dad is very my whole family are into sports, but my dad was a karate champion, and his like kind of mentality to it was like, okay, well you're gonna do it. If you fall, you're gonna get up, and that's it. And I remember this one time, and I can't believe I remember it because I was very very young at the time, and I fell over, and I was like, I can't get up, and he was like, well, if you can't get up, I'm gonna leave you. And he did. He left, and I was like, oh my god, I have to get up. So and that was kind of very quickly I learned like, okay, got to do it myself. So that was actually a really good thing, of course, for me, because it taught me really quick that I can kind of man up a little bit. Right. And sexist way to say it, but you're allowed. You know what I mean. In the totally woman way, you're gonna man up a bit. But that's kind of how it started, and then I basically just tried to chase my brother all over the place and catch him and beat him and as much as I can. No, that's actually common. I saw a thing on Instagram the other day where it was a video of Michael Jordan saying that if his brother had been 6'3", then he would have been known as his little brother, instead of being the famous Michael Jordan, because he said my brother was always better than me and I was always just trying to beat him. Right. So by the time I got to college and I'm getting to play other people who aren't my brother, it's like, okay, this is a little bit easier. Oh yeah, for sure. So exactly. that like brotherly competition, it was the same thing for us. I had a big brother who was 6 years old. Well, I still have him, 6 years older than me, and then I had one that was 3 years younger and one that was a year older. And so it's just like. And then my dad, of course, huge sports fanatic. And so you kind of get brought up into this environment of ultra competitive, just want to win at everything. Yeah. But it really does help in the athletic field. Like you need that. And the other thing I think about sports in general, and we'll also talk about this with the CrossFit stuff later, is that the thing that I take the most away from my entire like athletic careers and, you know, all from childhood is learning not to quit. Because I remember starting in 7th grade, you know, you show up for basketball, and the first 2 weeks, every day, all you're doing is running for like an hour, you know, and you're young then, so you can kind of take it. But the whole thing is they're just trying to get people to quit, you know, because they don't want the people who are just here for a good time.
Right.
But I always had this thing of like, there's no way I can go home and look my dad in the face and say, oh, I quit. And then he says, why? Well, because they made us run. Well, that's a terrible reason.
Yeah.
And there's so many things now that will happen in life where it may be quite physically uncomfortable, but you just know, hey, my body can't take this. You know, if I push it, it will do what I want it to do. But sports really does teach you that. It really makes that a reality for you.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think I always have the thing where I feel like I cannot quit. Again, a positive and a negative on my side, because that was also the thought in my mind where I thought, if I take more time now, if I say I'm not going to do this competition, or if I say like I'm really hurting or something, I always felt that that was me quitting, or having some kind of excuse. So that was one thing that probably now I know that actually that's not weakness.
No.
You know, that's actually just being smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it definitely something that sport does teach you, of course.
I think it's one of the good things about how mental health has gotten such a much broader focus now, or like, you know, gets a lot more attention from people. I'm 13 something years removed from high school sports, but I hope that today that's something that they're doing, is kind of checking on these kids mentally and seeing kind of if your heart is in it, you know, and that kind of stuff. Because I think what you just talked about is, if the only reason that you're quitting is because you don't want to run, well, obviously you shouldn't quit. But if you're quitting because you actually don't enjoy this activity, it's not something that you're passionate about, and you think there's other things that you could do, then you should quit, you know? And
yeah, for sure.
I think that's one of the problems with, say, high school and middle school, is there's not a whole lot of legitimate activities for, you know, kids' leisure time besides sports in the U.S. I'm speaking primarily about. Right. And that's a problem, because there's so many different, you know, things once you get out of school that you're going to be pulled into. Like, if you're a, you know, history buff in high school, or you want to be a physicist, there's not a lot out there for you to kind of, maybe a science fair once a year. But for athletes, there's tons of options. But like you talk about, so many kids are just doing stuff to kind of keep up with the societal pressures and things like that, they're probably not doing things that they're actually committed to. And that is a problem, is you need to have that ability in life to say, look, I don't want to do this. I'm going to quit doing it because I don't want to do it.
Right.
Not like that internal guilt where you just feel like, oh, I'm a failure if I quit this.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, I guess we had the same. It's all, you have all the different kind of sports teams. So yeah, I don't know, because I've never really thought of it that way, but of course that makes sense that there's not much.
Well, how did you, because a lot of people that you see that start a sport that they continue from the age of 3 to the age of 30, you know, like a lot of people would get burnt out. A lot of people have that kind of trouble with it, of especially like if their whole family does it and it's a big family affair. How did you kind of navigate that and not ever, maybe you did have burnout, I don't know.
So actually it was something that my family never pushed me to do anything. That was quite a big thing, because I saw a lot of athletes, especially around like the kind of early 20s, you could really tell if it's something that they really want to do or not, right. Or if they're just kind of, they're good at it, so they're kind of being pushed from their family to do it. So that was one thing that I had, is my family were super supportive of all my decisions for that. I really tried to make it fun when I could, so I would separate like the competition and the training, and I would just go like powder skiing, because I love powder skiing. If it was a powder day, I would rather go powder skiing than training, for example. And I think that's something that at the time seemed like you can't do that because you have to train. But
Can you explain what powder skiing is?
So powder skiing is basically when it's snowed a lot and there's a lot of snow. Say like can be up to your neck, but that's the dream. But
that's the dream up to your neck.
It's a bunch of it's a lot of snow and you're just kind of, you feel kind of like you're floating. It's like the best feeling in the world. Yeah. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, powder skiing.
You ever watch some of those documentaries like That's It, That's All and stuff like that? Where they, oh man, those are so beautiful.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's, I mean, that's something that is just so fun, and that's what I do now, that I'm not competing, is I just will always try and search for powder skiing. And I even like dabbled a little bit in the freeride world qualifiers, and I had thought to go on like to try and compete in the freeride circuit after ski cross. So I was like, oh, let's go further over. But so it's a really nice kind of fun way to do it. I mean, it's totally, you can go totally extreme, which you can't everything. Yeah. But powder skiing is awesome.
So were there times, like, because when I was just looking at all the different events you did, like that's an insane like circuit of activity in any type of activity. Were there times, you know, like you had friends who were just kind of like living a normal life and you weren't because you're off like training and then competing, and I'm sure your family was traveling with you and things like that, that were there times that you really felt like, wow, I have a much different life from my friends, and sometimes that you wanted their life, sometimes that you didn't want their life? How did that feel?
I think it was mostly, you kind of see that more when you're finishing school. Like I had the last years of high school, secondary school, where there was just, everybody was going to parties and, you know, that kind of thing, having fun that way. And I never really went to any parties because I was always training, or I was always away on a camp or something. So that was really something that was a big difference. And actually I then kind of felt pretty isolated from a lot of people from at school because you just don't get the same interaction with people. My family didn't travel with me, not really, only when I was younger. So
I guess it would be tough at a certain point, like they can't drop their whole lives.
Yeah, right. They have to work. So my brother was at university at that time. He was doing a law degree at the time. So I would kind of just go off with certain teams, like our youth team and children's teams, and they would be at home, and I would come back a few weeks later. So it just kind of always went like that. And then when I was 16 and I left school early, and I moved to Austria full time with the British national team. Then I was away for months at a time. And so, it was only actually when I had my first big injury that I came home, and that I was actually home in Scotland for a kind of longer period of time because I was rehabbing. That's when I got to kind of see how other people my age were kind of living. It was so weird.
Oh, this is normal life.
I was like, what is happening? Yeah. Even though I kind of like looked at it from afar because I still was not really doing it, but I could kind of see it. So it was like, all right, that's normal, right? Okay.
So has the point kind of come at this point now where you can just totally let loose since you have officially retired? And I mean, obviously now you're a fitness freak, so.
I mean, it can, but I think what happened each year, we would have this kind of end of season, like kind of party. Once a year. When we were like finishing one season before we started another one, and that was always really, really fun. But I loved training so much that I was like, I hate feeling crap. Like I hate feeling bad. I hate feeling tired. I hate being hungover. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a good drinker, so I was like, this is not for me.
Well, you have to love the training, right? In order to do it for that long. Like you absolutely have to love it. Yeah.
What actually happened for the last like 10 years or so was every year I was rehabbing. So I was rehabbing just year after year, some kind of injury. And that was really the hardest part because, I couldn't then do the normal training. You're always kind of just like, you feel like you're getting back to square one. Yeah. So
it puts a lot of pressure on the outcome as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Because you're investing so much in the ability just to get back out there to compete again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also what made it harder when, you know, you would spend so much time and so much effort to come back, and maybe you're there for one race and then you're injured again. And I mean, it happened to me, you know, sadly more than once, you know, where you sacrifice everything to do that, and you put in countless hours and time, and yeah, and you just you fly to the other end of the world, and then your first run out, then you crash, and that's it. So
I can't imagine. But I mean, you know, you say it not like you're embarrassed or anything, but when you say it happened to me, like from the videos that I saw, it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know? And it's that's also kind of a crazy thing to maybe like choose a sport that is such a risky sport in a way. Like there's a good chance that, like you just said, your first run, you've just put 4 years of, and obviously you're doing things during the 4 years, you're qualifying, you're doing all these other races, but I guess the Olympics are kind of like that in general, right? I mean, so you met the criteria to be in the Olympics twice?
Yeah, so I met the criteria in 2 different sports, in Alpine and in ski cross. And yeah, it's obviously something was for quite some time a very hard thing for me to accept. We had 1 year where our federation went bankrupt, 2010.
This is in Britain, the British
Ski Federation,
oh,
yeah.
Look at that.
yeah, nice. They went bankrupt, and a lot of people that suffered from that. So I remember hearing that it had happened, and within like a day, my coach, who was traveling with me at the time for competitions, it was just the 2 of us, he had to fly back home because they couldn't pay him anymore. So I was suddenly alone at these like Olympic qualifying events. And
how old were you at this time?
2010. So yeah, 11 years ago. So 24.
Jeez, is that long ago?
I'm like, I know. I'm like, when was it?
How old am I?
Or was it 2000? Yeah, it was for the 2010 Olympics. So it was like 2009, just turning 2010. And yeah, I remember suddenly being alone at these qualifier events. And for speed, you just cannot be alone, because you need a coach to check the course for you, to tell you if there's something going on in the course. You can't do that sport alone. So I had to actually just kind of try and team up with other countries. And yeah, of course, nobody wants to take anyone else on, right? Because you're, of course, their competition, or you're paying into the program.
Oh, right.
But I couldn't do either. So eventually, yeah, I remember that it was the Austrian team at the time at this competition, and we they were like, yeah, where's your coach? And I was like, because he was Austrian, and I was like, yeah, he's gone. And so they really helped me.
Where did he go?
Yeah, he went home. Because they were like, the federation said like, you can't be there because we can't pay you, and your job's done, and
you should have done it for free. Come on,
know, right?
Take it for the team.
I know.
So then they let you borrow their coach?
Well, they let me kind of tag along a little bit with. They helped me with the course reports, like telling me like, okay, yeah, of course you have different places on the track, and they'll be like, turn 7 has a huge hole, so try to take it a little bit wider, or be careful on this turn, or this jump is running a little long, or, you know, so all these things you have to know before you run, because otherwise you're going in totally blind. So
which
that
seems
was
impossible in such a high risk sport. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
In a literal game of inches.
yeah, exactly. So and that race that I was on my own, I made the qualifying result.
Wow.
So yeah, it was nice, but I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I was like, no one's here.
Yeah, because then I saw you in another interview. Then you later on after that, when you said, oh, it's nice to have a coach again.
yeah, right.
And I was like, why didn't you have a coach?
So strange. Yeah. So the thing is, when I made the switch, I had such a tough time. Then after that, like. They were cutting the speed program from the British Federation, because I was the only one on it.
Oh.
So they were like, well, we can't really afford to pay for a coach and a service for you only. So they're like, we're going to just focus on the technical disciplines. So at that point, I was like, well, I don't want to ski the technical disciplines, so I have to make a decision. So that's when I decided to switch to ski cross. And at that point, there was no funding in the UK for ski cross because it was a brand new sport. It just come into the Olympics 2010, and you know, people were kind of just doing it themselves. And I thought, okay, well, you know I can ski, so I'm just going to give it a try. And really, they kind of said, oh yeah, you'll be fine. Don't worry, you don't need any training. And my first race, I quickly saw that I needed training. And yeah, it was very, you know, quick shock that I was like, okay, there's so much to this sport that is not just skiing.
Yeah.
So I needed the help, but the only coach came in only a few years later. So yeah.
So, and then you have to self-fund yourself, right? And a lot of these things. How does that work?
Yeah, so the whole time I was doing ski cross was all self-funded, and you just have to get sponsorship, and I had fundraisers and things like that, and just people supporting that way.
You were sponsored by Head for a while, right?
Yeah, I still work with Head,
nice.
The free ride division now.
Ah, cool.
Which is awesome. They're so good.
I always used their tennis rackets.
Yeah,
they didn't pay me, but
but they're so good.
Yeah. If you want to pay me, I'm still here.
But so yeah, they were great, but I had to get these sponsors, just like individual sponsors. So it was a lot of work also to kind of try and get that together.
Yeah. It's like your own business.
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah.
Like a freelance skier.
Right? It was just also quite stressful because, you know, if you were to put together, I remember one of my teammates, she put together her individual program with a coach and everything, and you know, she was spending like 300 grand a season.
A season?
Yeah. For just like having the right coaches and everything she needed.
Is her last name Bezos?
Yeah, it's insane. So you know, you need a lot for a sport like that. It's really crazy. You need your physios and your coaches and everything with you because it's just so high impact, like, you know, sport. But
and then of course the travel. I mean, geez.
Yeah, you're exactly. But I couldn't obviously come up with that, so I would come up with just this fractional amount that I could just get to the competitions. Even if I didn't have a coach, it was okay. I would just, so that I was there and I was able to compete. So on one side, it was very hard to go against like the best in the world who have unlimited resources. You know, they have everything they need. You know, when you're kind of like, okay, I'm not even really sure how to come into this one, you know. So that was such a steep learning curve, and it's something that you know, I did my best with what I had and what I could come up with. I'm just glad that I could be there and do what I could do, and I think for what I had, it went well. And I just, you know, it's tough to do alone.
Absolutely. But what I love about hearing you talk about it right now is you talk about it with such a sense of pride and accomplishment. And I think that's kind of what I was talking about before, is that in that moment, I don't think it's very natural to kind of like set goals for yourself, and then as soon as you get to that goal, you think, okay, I'm finished, like that's it. When you're in the heat of it, you know what I mean, it's, you always want to progress and do the next thing and the next thing. And
yeah,
so at that time, I'm sure you didn't really feel like you had accomplished, you know, much or whatever, especially because you're always looking at your competition, like what's this girl doing, what's that girl doing.
Yeah.
But now to hear you, you know, talk about it, and to, you know, I just looking at the list of all the places where you had, you know, like won lots of races and came in second in a bunch of races. And they're all over the world. I mean, everywhere from South America to North America to Europe, Asia, you know, Scandinavia. Yeah. I think, was it New Zealand or Australia, something like that?
Yeah, both.
I mean, yeah, that's an insane life that you were able to live through, you know, skiing. And I think that in itself is a huge, like, you accomplished something awesome. So do you feel proud about it now, like when you look back?
Yeah, I mean, it's like what I said before. It took some time to reflect. And I had such a period where I felt so disappointed with myself and my performance and my career. Actually, I was really in a place, and that happened because I was kind of forced into stopping. You know, it was my body that's just totally quitting on me, that it's like, I can't do it anymore, rather than me having the decision, okay, now it's time. So that was the hard part for me to accept, that I wasn't ready to finish, but my body's really saying enough is enough. After some time and reflection and kind of just really going over the last 15 years of my life, I really could kind of see it, put it into perspective, and see what I've achieved and where I've gone and the people I've met and just the whole career, and yeah, I am really proud of all the things that I did, and all the things that I've accomplished and managed, and yeah, it's
I'm proud of you. I don't even know you.
Thank you. Thanks. So yeah, but it was a kind of journey to kind of get to this place where I feel comfortable, where I'm like, okay, now it's really, I have to stop with it now.
That's awesome. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about the transition and kind of what you're doing now. And we're back. That's always fun to say. It's like either being a TV news anchor or a professional radio DJ, Thanks for hanging with us there, folks. We're happy to be back. Where we left it before was that you've now kind of started this new chapter in your life, and we're going to talk a little bit about, how you got to Rotterdam and stuff like that. But I think you're an insane person because you decided to start a gym during a government mandated lockdown that doesn't allow any of us poor peasants to go to the gym. So what in the world were you thinking?
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking we went through the first lockdown, and I thought, they said that health and fitness is one of their big priorities, and that they're not gonna, they're really thinking ahead with that. So they kept the gyms, they opened them pretty quickly after the first one.
Yeah.
And we had, really decent rules for training outside. So I thought, okay, you know what? It's a risk. We know there's going to be the second kind of lockdown, but it's not going to be long, and it's going to be fine. And
famous last words.
Yeah, so I got to stay positive, and actually it was I found this building that I just fell in love with and I really wanted. So I was like, we have to take it.
It's next to the vanilla factory, right?
Yeah, it's right across, exactly. And it's a brand new building. It's so beautiful. It's just like floor to ceiling windows, and it's really high. It's gorgeous.
I saw the pictures online. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was something that I'd really looked for such a long time, but I never found somewhere just like that. I thought they're not going to allow us to have a gym in any place that looks like that. So it was really something that was kind of limiting me to find somewhere. And so as soon as I saw it, and I said, are we allowed to do a gym here? It was the key question. And when they said yes, I was like, okay, I really need to have it. So that was kind of the deciding factor.
So what kind of caused you to want to have a gym in the first place? Because you talked a lot before about, this idea of now you're taking this into your coaching. So I assume that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, so I in the times where I was injured, I was here a lot more. And when I was rehabbing, I was asked for help from a few people with training and also for skiing and things like that. And I was ski coaching for some different people and privately and through some different teams. And I really enjoyed coaching and helping other people. And when I was here, a friend of mine, she introduced me to CrossFit the first year I was here. And she started her own box, CrossFit Alpine. And
I know the gym with the same name. Does she also own the gym? Or
she owned she's now out of it. It's now with one of the original owners is taking it over. It was on Katendrecht.
Oh, okay.
So right beside the food factory.
This one is on Houdesingle, so I guess it's different.
Right. Yeah. So it's CrossFit Alpine. And I started training there as a kind of training system alongside my own programming and my own training. And she said, have you thought about coaching, and maybe you can, look into it more and you can work here with me. So I did that, and I kind of fell in love with it then. And I was injured more, and I spent more time, and then I started working at some different places, different gyms in the city, and eventually I was thinking like, okay, I'm finishing my professional skiing, so now what? You know, I always did the kind of CrossFit coaching or personal training alongside, you know, the skiing. But now I was like, okay, I need to have something that I want to have that's, you know, my own, and, you know, the next step, really. So that's kind of where it came from.
That's awesome. And so did you have any kind of resistance when you kind of started to say, okay, I think I can, you know, start my own gym. Like I have all these good reasons why I want to do it. And you have kind of the momentum. Was there also some resistance in there? Like that kind of negative self-talk stuff where it's like,
you know what? It was like a big curveball, because I always thought I was going to have a gym in Canada.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
please tell.
Yeah. So I my parents had a house in Canada when I was growing up, in Canmore, which is just outside of Banff in Alberta, and it's
Banff
like,
is supposedly gorgeous.
Oh, it's like heaven.
Man.
It's the best place ever. So I always said that, and in 2010, after I made this transition from Alpine to ski cross, I spent quite some time. I skied actually that year with the Canadian team. And I spent a lot of time there in Canada and in Canmore specifically. So I always said that I wanted to move back there. And so my plan...
Not a bad place.
Yeah, right?
No offense, Rotterdam, but...
Yeah, my plan had always been with the view of moving back there. So because, you know, I can ski anytime I want then, and I could have the gym. And so really it wasn't until last summer during the lockdown when, you know, we were really like trying to figure out what we were going to do that...
I wonder what that is.
There's some beeping going
Go ahead. That's just the third angle. So
okay. Yeah, it was during the last lockdown that I was like, okay, I have to make the decision here. Am I going to wait and see if I can go to Canada and what I can do there, or am I going to stay here and make something here? My boyfriend lives here and he's also a trainer. And yeah, so I had to kind of make a decision, and it came to the point where like, okay, now we really have the opportunity while the gyms are closed and while I was looking for somewhere. And it was like, okay, I think I'm just gonna do it. So it really was like a real, from like 1 month to the next, thinking like, okay, I'm going to move to Canada and I'm going to make my life there, to, you know, I'm actually going to stay here and open something and make something here, because of course, like, I know people here and I have a huge base of people and friends, and my life is really here. Whereas in Canada, I know a lot of people, but to start a business there, I would really have to, like, you know, it would take a lot of time, and I'll just, yeah, the timing would be completely different, and I don't know what's going to happen right now, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of like, okay, and I saw the building and I was like, okay, sold.
That's how it happens.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, it's interesting that, because I remember when so they did the first gym lockdown. Obviously that sucked, but that was in the midst of what we were talking about before the podcast, of like, that was kind of like the world might end, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then we have that, so nobody's really thinking at the moment, oh, damn it, they closed the gyms. You're thinking, I hope I don't die.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, of course, like, summer comes and they basically open up everything.
Yeah.
And so then they, you know, of course the gyms were reopened. And then because they waited so long in this second lockdown to close the gyms, and they said in the beginning, you know, they recognize that there's a big public benefit on the health side to having the gyms open. I was hopeful, just like you were, of that, okay, maybe this time, you know, we'll miss that bullet. And then, of course, you know, pretty soon after that, they close the gyms, and then they close the barbershops, and then the curfew comes. And so clearly, you know, it's a totally different situation than it was from the first time. But I can see how you would have that hope, you know, that, okay, well, maybe like, and the thing that I keep saying about gyms is that it's such an easy thing to actually do properly with the whole situation.
100%.
I mean, everybody can wear a mask. Everybody, Under Armour has a dope ass mask that's like has these breathing holes. And you have the Under Armour ones?
We have
those
the
are so
Under Armour
cool.
ones. Yeah, the thing is, like, yeah, what we obviously showed before is it's different for like a huge David Lloyd type fit for free gym where they have like 1,000 members and they have really a lot of space for people. A small groups training is very easy to regulate.
Yep.
So we can get, you mark your space on the floor, like you tape off spaces that are far enough away from each other. Everybody has their own equipment in that space. There's a walking line so that there's no like crossover of people. Everybody has their own cleaning equipment, so it's very easy to make it safe, and you're in for an hour and then you're out, and everything is clean again, and so there's definitely ways to keep it really well monitored and safe, so the fact that of course they moved it from 2 people outside, you can have 4 people outside. The weather, of course, here is always
I thought you were
interesting.
gonna say amazing.
Always interesting. Funny thing about that is people always said to me like, oh, what do you think? How did you move here? And I said like, the weather is great. And they were like, who is this person? And I was like, I'm from Scotland. Of course the weather's great.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right? So I was like, Scotland's,
It's crazy up there, man.
Yeah.
And you're not even from the worst part. Like, it gets worse the further you go up.
It's, no, but the thing is, it's so beautiful. When you get a good day, it's like the best ever. But we got some rain.
You got some rain for sure.
We're accustomed to rain. Yeah.
I have to admit that last night I got a little bit I was doing obviously the research for the podcast, and then I ended up on a little bit of a Loch Ness Monster rabbit hole.
Oh, really?
Because then I was like looking at the map and I was like, oh, I see all these locks around, and I was like, well, where's Loch Ness? So then I started scrolling up, and my mom when I was a kid was super into the Loch Ness stuff because there's this one movie that I think Sean Connery is in, and she's a huge Sean Connery fan, and so she'd watch it over and over and over, and so I got kind of into the whole thing as well when I was a kid. Like, I also loved Godzilla, so it was a very close, relation there. I was like, if Godzilla's there, and then the Loch Ness Monster's there.
No.
But that whole, area up there, I think is just insane. Like, and then what do they talk about? How there's so many like different species or something, just like all through there, where it's just one of the most ecologically unique kind of places on Earth.
Yeah, so that is also to do with the weather. So, there's pros and cons for the weather. But yeah, there's for like beautiful places. Mm-hmm. Scotland is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful places. Certainly certain parts of Scotland up north and also certain coasts. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's just, of course, you gotta weather some storms a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's fine.
Just a little rain.
You can catch a nice lucky time. But yeah, it's a beautiful place, and yeah, I highly recommend it.
I would love to go. I really want to go back. Actually, it's on my list. And then I noticed that St. Andrews is up there, and I was like, oh, my dad would probably love to go do like a little St. Andrews. And then, yeah, he's a big golfer now.
Yeah?
Speaking of injuries, he just had like not a rotator cuff, but some other shoulder injury. And he's been out, like he couldn't golf for like 6 months. And so now he's finally able to golf again. And then this guy, he works at a chemical plant in Texas. And one of his coworkers is now out for some reason for like 3 months. So my dad is basically going to do nothing but work for the next 3 months. He's like, I finally just get off this injury. And then
oh, man.
So he's just dying to golf.
I can imagine. Oh, well, that's the place he's got to go. And if you can play in Scotland, you can play anywhere.
Of course. There's this, it's like from one of my favorite books ever. It's called The War of Art. And he said that one day, his guy's name is Stephen Pressfield. And he said one day he was actually golfing in Scotland. And he had this Scottish caddy. And he like hit this shot. It might have been a story he was telling. I hate to butcher it or whatever, but he's golfing and then he hits one in the wind and he goes, "Oh man, did you see how straight that was gonna go before the wind took it?" And then he said he had this really old Scottish cat. He's like, "Well, I guess you got to play the wind now, don't you?" Just gives him that total like, "What do you think we're doing here? This is Scotland."
Yeah, I mean, come on, it makes sense.
You can't just hit it with nothing about the wind.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it was beautiful. I spent week, I think, around that. Not up in was it Inverness? Is that
Inverness?
Is that the real pretty part? I haven't been. I told you Stirling was like the furthest north. I think I went to see that castle there.
Yeah. Well, like Loch Lomond is right by Glasgow. It's gorgeous also.
Man, I would love to, like, because that's what I was about to say is that whole like Northumberland and then, you know, like borderland kind of, man, that was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
The rolling hills, and then it's like a patchwork quilt of different, you know, those fields of things. And I think it's like rapeseed. There's a lot of rapeseed up there that they grow, and then there's just sheep everywhere. And
yeah.
what was insane about some of these old castles is like they're kind of, you know, in ruins now, but they're not in ruins in the sense that you can still walk up them and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's just sheep around, you know, like there'll be a goat walk up and look at you like, hey, what are you doing? This is my castle.
Yeah, some Highland cows around.
Man, it's just such a gorgeous, you know, area. And then, do you watch the TV show Vikings?
No.
They filmed most of that. It's obviously supposed to be beautiful Scandinavia, but they filmed most of that in Ireland. So like that whole kind of area, of course, very rainy. But
yeah. Outlander. That's one of the TV shows. That's a good one.
I haven't watched that one.
You see a lot of Scotland on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check that one out. I'm gonna check that camera real quick. And then, so we got into that whole discussion because we were talking about the weather here. And that used to be, I tried this joke all the time, and people would say, why did you move here? And I said, oh, the weather.
Yeah.
But nobody ever got it.
I know.
They always took it so literally, like, what? But people in Holland, they hate the weather. Yeah. I was like, it's clearly a joke because the weather is terrible. However, I do actually like the cold weather.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Texas, and so it's super hot there almost all year round.
Right.
The winter is cold, but it's not like, you know, Denver also is interesting because Denver would be a lot of snow, but then it might also just be like 30 degrees and sunny out later that day, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really enjoy the warm weather, of course, like that like Mediterranean stuff, but I also always kind of had this fantasy of living in the Northeast or Seattle, something like that.
Okay.
So this is kind of taking the place of that, you know, for me. But so I guess for you to sacrifice moving to Canada to stay here and open a gym in Rotterdam, I mean, of course, for the skiing factor, like you don't have the beauty of Banff and that kind of surrounding region.
Yeah.
But you're kind of, like you said, used to the cold and rainy, and this is a little bit of a break. So.
Yeah, and the reason why, one of the reasons why I came here in the first place was because you can just get in your car and drive anywhere in Europe, and you can be in Switzerland or in Italy or in Germany or whatever. So for me, I don't think twice about like driving 10 hours to the ski resort or something. So I'm happy to do that like anytime that there's good snow and we can travel. That's
what I did. We drove to that Jungfrau trip. We drove all the way, rented a car, drove through Germany. It's like a 9-hour drive, something like that. Not that bad.
No, because the thing is, when I'm used to from competing that we would have one competition in France, and then the next day we had to drive. We had a competition in Switzerland, and the next day we had to be in Czech, and so I'm just used to really long journeys. Yeah. And so for me, I don't care to drive. I don't mind about driving across countries. No, and
it's the same for me because like I told you earlier that my university was 2 hours away from my hometown, and then Houston was 2 hours away from that. So you'd go to concerts and sporting events and things like that, and then we once drove to a beach in Florida that was like a 10-12 hour drive or something. So it's like you have this big road trip culture, I think, in the US. And then people, of course, that do a lot of traveling for sports throughout their life, also very used to that. Right. But then here it's like you say, oh, I'm going to go to Amsterdam tomorrow. What? All the way to Amsterdam?
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny because I have that also. And so now I'm like, oh, yeah, Amsterdam is pretty far.
Yeah, no, me too.
Crazy.
No, yeah, though I have a friend that lives across the bridge, like in the south, and he's like, oh, no, not coming there. Like, I don't go across the bridge. It's too far.
No, exactly.
So, the vanilla factory, I've heard about that, but I have not actually been to that area. But actually, the next podcast episode might be at the vanilla factory.
Oh, cool.
So I'd like to go over there and check it out. But I did see the photos of your gym on the website, and it does look super cool. Yeah. Perfect for CrossFit. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to ask you because I've only done like a CrossFit workout twice, and that was because in college I lived with this doctor who was obsessed with it, and he was always wanting me to go. And I wouldn't just because like I just didn't want to do it. I actually knew why he wanted me to go. It was because he did it all the time. And he knew I didn't do it, and it's incredibly fucking hard. So he was just gonna make me look like an idiot, and he was gonna enjoy it. But then our roommate a roommate started doing CrossFit coaching just for a little bit, just to kind of like help out a friend or something like that. And he was still kind of trying to get the group going. And so he wanted me to come just to kind of support him,
Right.
not to make me look terrible. And so
Right.
I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come. And I died, man. I died. It was like going back to baseball practice, you know, where they are trying to get you to quit type of day. So what is it about CrossFit that kind of attracted you in the beginning?
So I had the same kind of thing, thought about it when I first saw it, and that's what I really liked about it. Actually, I was like, oh my god, it's really hard workouts. I love it, because I really like the really horrible kind of grind, like nasty, make you die workouts. And I think
are insane.
and I think that is, I don't know, just because I just like the kind of training, but it's actually what brought me into it. But now, of course, being in it and coaching it and kind of, because actually our gym is not officially CrossFit, it's functional fitness.
What is the difference?
Functional fitness, CrossFit is just functional fitness, but you're affiliated with the CrossFit brand, because CrossFit is an owned brand, and it's you
trademark. Yeah,
it's a trademark brand,
right,
of course.
I saw that, yeah.
And you have to pay to the CrossFit brand to be able to call yourself a CrossFit box.
It's like the mob.
Right. So it's like, so the thing is with CrossFit is like, it's kind of got this reputation as being this kind of cult, you know, and people don't shut up about CrossFit. If they do it, it's all CrossFit.
It's all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. That's why a lot of people hate CrossFit people.
Yeah, right. So the thing is, there's also this reputation where it's like what you said, like it's like you're going to die when you do the workouts. It's horrible and it's like intense and
die after you throw up.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But actually, what the whole thing about CrossFit is, and what they try to push you into, what they try to say, but actually is the way is CrossFit is for anyone, and it really depends on the gym. So you can go to, just like anywhere, you can go to a CrossFit gym, and they have really good coaches and good programming, because the programming makes all the difference. And you can go that it's much, you know, it's much more kind of available to everybody, and it's not as scary, it's not as intense, and of course you can scale up to make it as hard as you want. You can also scale down to make it as easy as you want. So it really varies and depends which gym you go to. So you can have a good experience or a bad experience. And what we were trying to, of course, encourage is that you have a good experience, obviously, that it is available to everybody, because we want to try and kind of break that kind of understanding that CrossFit is you're going to die, and you can only go if you're super fit. And that's actually what we hear from a lot of people is like, oh, I don't want to try it because I haven't done anything in years, or I have injuries, or I have this and that. And that's something that for us, for me, like at the gym, I have a partner, Chris. We own the gym together.
The gym is called the Bar Rotterdam, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the concept of the gym was, the bar, of course, for the barbells, because we do a lot of work with barbells. But also,
as you should.
right. But also we have a coffee bar, like a health and fitness.
Is that where the chicken and waffles come from?
That's the chicken and waffles.
Get some of those.
They are so good.
Man.
There's something that I keep saying to Chris, like, please, can we do chicken and waffles again? Because I just want them myself.
I saw them on Instagram and I haven't been able to get them out of my head.
We will get you some. We'll get you some for sure. But yeah, so it's really nice because the focus of the gym, like, I really wanted to put in, because of my experiences being an athlete and like with various coaches, I want to have a very specific way of coaching, really technique based. And I have a lot of experience with all the different injuries and helping people with injuries and rehabbing and moving well. And that's really what I'm passionate about is people, no matter what level they're at, you can get them really fit and healthy, and just learning more about their bodies. And I think that's the key thing, is like getting people to understand why they're doing it, and like, you know, wanting to do it, rather than like, you're going to show up and you're going to do 500 burpees and you're going to, you know, get on the ground. And that's like obviously what people think we do, but that's not actually what we do. And then we have like Chris, he is a chef, my partner in the business is a chef, and he's also a coach, which is like,
Perfect
for me,
combo.
was like the best combo, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, I am a horrible cook, so he's going to be in charge of like all the kind of the food prep and the healthy foods, and like we will work together with like specific diets and the food prepping together, and that kind of thing is a whole other side to it. It's like the kind of, you know, other than the training part, it's like a full package, you know. And then we have my boyfriend, who's also coaching there. He is a part of the business, and he is like he's our knowledge base. He's like our fit Bible kind of guy
nice.
to go to. And
those are good friends to have.
Yeah, it's a good one to have. And he's in charge of the programming and you know, getting the coaches to the same level so that we can all teach safely in the same way, and we all have the same understanding. And the focus is really individual on each person, and working on different goals and things like that. So it's kind of like we're actually not affiliated, so we can't call ourselves a CrossFit box, so functional fitness, but we really focus on each individual and the goals, and that's the plan.
Well, don't do it. Don't call it CrossFit then, because I think I honestly have quite a negative connotation with CrossFit. So I had my own, you know, guy who, like you're talking about your boyfriend, he knows all the stuff, and it's like that's that roommate in college that I told you about. So he looks basically like, you know, Brad Pitt and Troy. And he's looked that way for like 15 years. And he's just like, he was always telling, like, he was the first person I knew to start eating quinoa, you know, before it was the craze and all that kind of stuff. But he was the first person to teach me about, like, you know, organic peanut butter and how peanut butter should actually have oil at the top. It should separate, blah, blah, blah. So super smart guy. He actually got his master's in pharmaceutical engineering or pharmaceutical science, something like that. And now he's in pharmaceutical sales, probably making a lot more money than me. But anyway, so he actually was one of the first people to kind of tell me about the negatives of CrossFit, being that a lot of the motions that you, and I think this is why it's important of what you just said, of kind of knowing the correct way to do things, knowing how every individual body kind of like can respond to these different exercises. Because there are certain things that some CrossFit coaches will do that it's not exactly like a natural motion. So let's say you're doing too much that's going to, you know, stress your rotator cuff. Yeah. All that's going to do over the course of 6 months to a year of you doing that exercise, and like you say, you have some of these coaches where it's like, we're going to do 500 of these, and if not, you're a sissy, and blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, that's all it's going to do is get people hurt. Yeah. And then they're not going to be able to work out at all. And definitely. That's not good for anybody. And then also that, now, I guess the flip side of that is that what I think is so great about CrossFit is that it does have this kind of craze behind it of like, if you actually have the, you know, chutzpah to get yourself into a CrossFit gym, then they are going to, you know, work you out, and you are going to hopefully get healthy. And there is like this kind of support community around you where, you know, you have like all these other people who are doing it. And so if you have somebody who's not active at all, and then now they get into CrossFit, that can be, you know, quite a life changer. But I don't think you have to be an insane cult in order to have those good benefits. Right. And that's exactly what we're trying to show to people, that and it's also why we didn't want CrossFit in our name, right? Because we all came together through CrossFit, and we all do CrossFit ourselves, but it's not the only thing. And, you know, I also give personal training, and I work different things. It's just functional fitness, you know. So what you mean by that is basically like being able to do all these different motions, like with a box jump and things like that. Like you're just trying to get your body to move in these compound movements to where your fitness increases because you're able to do all these different movements that maybe you didn't feel like you could do before. Is that what you mean? I mean, functional fitness just means like you getting fitter for functional things. So for example, being able to carry the groceries, or being able to carry your kids, or, you know, things like that. You want to go for a longer hike, or you want to go traveling, or I don't know, just like so just to be generally more fit. Yeah, just in general for what you want to do in your life. So that's basically the fundamentals behind it. Like I said before, it's in the programming, is that you know, in the programming, so that you're not overloading someone with the same thing over and over and over and over. It's a very big skill to be able to program for a bunch of different people that don't come on the same days. So that is the hard thing, is getting the right programming. But it's just
educating the people that are doing it to work better for themselves. So it's about their health, their fitness, rather than like, I want to get the fastest time on this today. So that's really where the coaching comes in, is getting them to not just telling them how to move, it's getting them to understand how they're moving.
Right.
So what we have is, we don't just have one like class, like one workout class, which is like a workout of the day. It's called a WOD. We don't just have that. We will have, specialty classes. We'll have classes if you want to build strength, if you want to build more gymnastics. We have Olympic lifting classes, we have mobility classes, so that if a lot of people who do this really are super tight, they need to stretch a little bit more, and ones that are really appropriate to the fitness and the workouts that you're doing. We'll have like classes that are more just high intensity classes, use a little bit less equipment, so they're a little bit easier. And, so there's such a huge range of things that we want to try and be able to guide people to what's right for them or what they want to work on, rather than just say, this is a workout for today. This is what everybody does. And go and do it. I don't care how you're feeling. You just go.
Give me the 500 or get out.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's great, honestly. And, I think one of the things that's difficult for people who are not in shape at all is that you don't have a lot of immediate kind of feedback, in the sense of, if you go on one run or you go on 5 runs, it's not like you immediately see, let's say you're overweight, okay, and you go on 5 runs, you're not going to see a real kind of reduction in body fat or anything like that from those 5 runs.
Yeah.
You might eat super healthy for 2 weeks and you may not, see any. So I think what's difficult about that is you don't have that motivation of kind of that feedback loop of like, when you're in good shape, and let's say you've taken 6 months off from the gym because the government won't let you work out, hypothetically, and then you start working out again, you're immediately going to start seeing, gains, because you're already in shape. You can see your muscles because you're lean, and then you see them getting bigger. When you're really out of shape, you don't have that, and so it's quite difficult to, first of all, get motivated enough, because you seem so far away from your goal. Yeah. And then secondly, it's difficult to keep going because you're not seeing, like, you see the effort and you feel the effort, but you don't see the returns. So when you're trying to, maybe talking to people about joining the gym or just getting back involved in fitness in general, how do you kind of guide them in those baby steps to kind of make them feel comfortable and make them feel like, I guess, confident in the beginning?
Right. So it's been said a lot before, but it's really the case where you have to try and understand what someone is looking for first. And they have to really trust the process. So there's like you understand what someone wants, and then we make steps to get that way. And then, you just have to make them believe that what you're talking about, and make them comfortable enough that we just take baby steps, because it's different really for each person, especially if it's someone that's really overweight that hasn't done anything. We just make certain steps for them so that we don't put them into a class and they have to do something that they've never done before and they're sore and can't walk for a week. That is absolutely not what we want to do. Right. It's like going to scare them off actually instead. So you just make sure that you know who you have in the class, you know what they're after, and we make sure we have the coaches that have the understanding to be able to scale appropriately for each person and make them feel comfortable while they're there. Try to give them a better understanding of, maybe some small steps that they could take that will eventually lead them to what they want to do, but it's not like a full life-changing thing for them.
Like some incremental changes that they can make.
It's better to, what we found is it's much better to take these small steps, small changes in your life, your day-to-day life, that will make a huge difference over time, rather than just saying, you know what, you have to cut out this, you have to do this, and you have to, so because those things just aren't sustainable. Right. And those things just are things that are like totally alien to most people that have just not done any of that before. So it's just about making them understand and kind of just showing them a clear path on how to do it, and them trusting the process.
Yeah, it's also difficult to, when you're trying to get somebody to, let's say, build a new habit. It's very difficult to build a new habit and stop doing something else at the same time.
Yeah.
So if the thing, I was actually talking to my mom about this the other day, and I used Oreos as the example, and she said, I don't know why you hate Oreos so much. Truth is, I love Oreos, and that's why they torture me. But let's say that you eat too many Oreos, you eat a lot of junk food. If you tell me that, oh, you should stop eating Oreos right now and start eating vegetables, if I'm not eating any vegetables at all, like that's a totally new practice that I have to introduce into my life. Yeah. So not only are you telling me I have to stop doing one thing, which is going to be difficult on its own, you're also telling me I have to start doing. So it's really a twofold thing, right?
Exactly.
So I think it's good that you kind of have that incremental approach where, hey, if we can just get you coming to the gym, get you feeling good about the movements that you're doing, and kind of enjoying the process, just like you said, then I think that's a great way to kind of get people involved.
Yeah, I actually train also the firefighters at the airport.
Nice. Is that where you came from before?
Yeah. Okay. And what I have there is, I have, and I love it there because I have such a variation of people that I'm training.
That's interesting because your gym looks a lot like a firehouse, like where
right?
you would
where you would put the truck in. That's maybe why I liked it so much. But the difference is, of course, there is these guys that are on shift. They aren't paying they're not going to the gym. They're not like paying a membership to like go and work out. It's part of their job. So it's a kind of different dynamic actually, because you have the people that want to work out and you have the people that don't. And these guys, they're in such a physical job. It's really important for them to be fit and healthy and strong. So they do huge amounts of work. They put a lot of effort in, and they've really, really come on these last years actually. So for me, it's very rewarding to see that. But I have this kind of incremental step thing that I was just talking about. I have it with some of the guys. One in particular who loves Coca-Cola, and he drinks. I think he was drinking like 3 or 4 liters of Coke a day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he's like just loves it.
Well, okay, I used to drink that much, if not more, back in the day.
Right?
So I'm not trying to. 3 or 4 liters almost kind of got me, but that's still a lot, though.
It's a lot.
2 liters like this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've ever drank more than a 2 liter a day.
Yeah, it's really. I've never even had a Coke before.
What?
Yeah.
In your life?
No.
I got one in the fridge.
I've never had Coke before. I don't know. Oh. It like scared me. I think you did the whole like sugar thing back in school, and I was like, oh my god, that's a lot.
I made the joke to some colleagues at Lindahan the other day that they in order to make the COVID vaccines for Americans, they actually had to put a little bit of Coca-Cola and McDonald's infused in the recipe in order for it to work for us.
Well, but yeah, so this guy loves Coke, and
he's addicted to Coke. It sounds like Coca-Cola.
It is. Yeah, we have to say Coca-Cola, not Coke.
Right. Well, we call it Coke, but that's different now. You come around Europe. I mean, we call every soda a Coke in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, it's all Coke.
Yeah, just give me a Coke. But so he is actually addicted because of the sugar content. He's really addicted to the sugar. So what happens is when we've tried to like take him a little bit off, like reduce his intake just a little bit, because I can't say like, okay, you have to stop it drinking Coke. So he has withdrawal symptoms from the sugar.
I bet.
So we've had to like we've had to like really gradually come down with the amount of Coca-Cola that he drinks, and that alone has made already a big difference. I have the same thing with one of the guys who just didn't drink water. He drinks like 16-17 cups of coffee a day, but no water.
Oh yeah, I guess it makes sense. Yeah.
So that's, for me, that was like mind-blowing, because his muscles, his organs, everything is going to be like super dehydrated. So I'm like, that's like horrible for you. But that's just what he knows. So already just introducing like 1 or 2 cups of water a day, which is still nowhere near enough for a normal person, like to, it's not enough for them to be drinking. That already has made a big difference. Mm-hmm. So it's just like those small steps that are manageable. You have to just find the way to kind of introduce it, and it already makes changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't start with the stop eating Oreos. Start with the, hey, just eat like one vegetable a night.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's just a little bit more fiber that's going into your stomach that gives
Right.
you a little bit less room for Oreos. And again, I'm sorry, Oreos, but you are evil, I think. I mean, I do think this is one of the biggest problems in the U.S. that people don't really, I mean, obviously the world knows we have this huge obesity problem, but we're just all addicted to sugar and we don't talk about it. We are literally walking around. I call myself a recovering sugar addict because I honestly don't think it'll ever go away.
Right.
I had this lady in an English course the other day. As like the end of the course, she was giving me a gift, and it's this nice glass jar full of chocolate eggs, and all the little chocolate eggs have little things like caramel and stuff inside them. I told her, I was like, it's gonna be gone in 2 days. Like, I can't resist this, So that's why I just don't go down that aisle at the grocery store, because I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna eat it all the first 15 minutes from being home. Yeah. It's an addiction.
It is an addiction.
It's not like I'm lazy or something like that. It's sugar. It's a real powerful drug.
Yeah, it's the most powerful drug.
And there's just not a lot of nutrients in the foods that you're eating that are so high in sugar. So your body is still telling you, hey, we still need more food, because we haven't gotten actually anything that's, helping us here.
Yeah, and it's just spiking your insulin levels, and then you're dropping, and you're feeling like crap, and you're feeling tired, and then you want to have more sugar, and then it's a whole roller
never-ending
coaster.
cycle. Yeah, I think it's something when you talk about high performance athletes like yourself, is when you talk to people like that, like, you do have some that are just kind of like these genetic freaks where it's like, I eat McDonald's twice a day and I do whatever I want. There are those people, famous athletes who would get drunk like a night before a game and have no problem,
Bodie Miller.
Yeah. Michael Jordan supposedly smoked like 3 cigars before every game. Like, I don't know how you do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But most high performance athletes are not like that. Like, they're like, they know once your body is kind of tuned to, like, you notice the incremental differences when you're talking about a sport that's like 1/100th of a second could win or lose. You're going to notice little things in your body of how you feel, and that's, I think, how they kind of get so into, I know exactly what goes into my body and all this stuff. But for normal people, we're not out there, gonna die if we crash our head on a ski slope. At the same time, like, you will feel whenever you just are giving your body the stuff that it's designed to have a huge difference. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with the fitness, and that's why I think it's so great with that you guys are not married to the whole CrossFit is life. Like, you have to be an insane, like, I think just, teaching people a fun way and getting people, I guess, active in a fun way with other people is always a positive. So when I started, my English school, people the thing they used to say was like, oh, but there was already English schools in Rotterdam.
Oh, wow.
So, like, you shouldn't start one, then
that's it, yeah.
And it's like, well, there's not one exactly like mine, you know, and it's the same thing with gyms. Like, hopefully nobody, when you said I'm going to start a gym, like, they already have gyms here. Like, you should start something else. Because there's always so much room for people to improve and for people to, I guess, like, kind of grow. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's really cool that that even amid the, pandemic, that you guys are still kind of, so what's the status of that, I guess, of you, when do you?
Yeah, so I mean, we're still waiting, of course, to open officially. We had our like soft opening planned. We had an event planned for the 19th of December where we had this event. Actually, everything was really good protocol, but it was inside, and we had 100. It was like 100 tickets for spaces for this event, and it sold out within a couple hours, which was great for us because we were just, of course, brand new. So the momentum was really good when we decided to start. But then, of course, just the week before that event happened, of course, we went into this lockdown. So that event never happened. And in the meanwhile, we've just been getting the gym ready. So when we are open, and we've had to put some things on hold, of course, with things that we want to do in the gym until we can get going. Right. But we're just running some outdoor classes at the moment. So some really small groups because we have pretty big area. So we have enough space. For people who are
27 and younger. 27 and younger,
I know. This is the weirdest thing ever. So we are allowed to have.
Total bullshit, by the way.
It is. Yeah, I mean, because when you're 28, you're like.
Yeah, I'm 29. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm not healthy enough. I see some pretty terrible looking 25-year-olds out there.
Right, exactly. But, so we have the space that we can run these like really small group trainings, and we make them just 30 minutes because I think at the moment everybody is doing some kind of outdoor training, all the gyms. They're mostly an hour, but we do them for 30 minutes because we just make an intense workout that you can come and, you know, get warm, do your workout and go, rather than sitting in the rain or like waiting too much, getting cold outside. So the kind of focus there is a little bit different. It's also different from what we'll do inside, but we just want to give a kind of start or something while we can. We're obviously doing the food drops, like the chicken and waffles, that kind of thing.
Yeah, how did that start? Because you talked about the unique concept of like you're not really a bar, right? But you're
yeah, it's like a coffee bar.
Oh, coffee bar,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. So half coffee bar, half gym.
Yeah.
And so then you started chicken and waffles. Like how did that happen?
Well, because my partner Chris, he has a food prep company called Tastebo, and he makes those. He's made them in the past for his company, and so I was like, okay, Chris, we got to do some chicken and waffles because it's my favorite, and you know, people love them. So
Absolutely.
It was like something we just did. And a lot of people here, because of course, if you're American, you kind of get the kind of maple syrup on stuff, right?
Yes,
the sweet salty. Absolutely. But here, people were like, "Huh? Like maple syrup with chicken? Like what?" So it was kind of mind blowing for a lot of people. Like that doesn't make sense. So we've done quite well with that because people like it. People have tried it, and yeah, we've run that a few times, and that's been nice for us to do. It's been nice for me to do also.
And your boyfriend's over there. Do you know how many calories?
I know. Are you seeing what your macros are right now?
You're like, stop it.
Yeah. Don't look. Yeah. So for that side, it's been also good for us to do something different. We're constantly just trying to think of some different things, and we have a really fun Easter event planned actually for the Easter weekend. If we're still outside, we're gonna hopefully start promoting that this week also. It's more fun that you can come in with a partner, and you can win a bunch of prizes, and there'll be a lot of different things involved. But
nice, that's cool.
It should be. It's more like a fun event, just to kind of build a little bit of community rather than you have to come and die in your workout. Right. So so it's been nice. We've been doing these walks with a friend of ours who owns this gym in the city, Culture Club, and they've been doing walks all over the city, and we've been doing them, kind of hosting them at our place, so that just brings a different kind of group of people that we wouldn't normally have, that wouldn't really know we were there. So it's been quite nice just having us the exposure from that, and working together with to work with both people. And we've just kind of been trying to do what we can in this time.
So what can people in Rotterdam do if they listen to this and they think, oh, I like the idea of the bar Rotterdam, like I want to check it out or I want to support? What can they do to kind of reach out or find out more information?
So we have our website, thebarrotterdam.com. It's also .nl. We have both. We have a lot of information on there, so also like contact buttons and links to all the things that we're having at the moment. The really thing that we keep most updated is our Instagram page, because the Instagram really has like the food drops, the timings, and all that kind of thing. That's where we'll show all the things for the Easter weekend, for example. I would suggest if you have anything, just go to the Instagram page. You can always direct message us, or Chris's mobile is on there on the website. So
nice and transparent.
Yeah, if you want to get anything, he will have his mobile there. So
message him at 6 a.m. I'm gonna need some chicken and waffles today.
Yeah, exactly. Hit him up on the WhatsApp. We're very approachable, and happy to take any questions. We've had a bunch of questions from people recently about starting memberships, and we have this early bird deal that's it's a starting rate for a membership. It's a lower price than what we'll have when we're open, and it basically is like if you are one of the early bird members, you get a lower price and you stay on that lower price, and you also can get like a month or 2 months for free.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we want to like also give back to people that are supporting us, that we can support them, and we're not doing it to become this like crazy money driven business. We're doing it because we love it and we're passionate about it and we want to help people. And So we think it makes sense to be able to help people and they're also helping us. So yeah, that we have this early bird rate, and one of the questions was, of course, like, but I don't know when the gyms are opening. So if I buy the early bird, like, I don't want to be starting it now. We have some people that already started their membership just for supporting, which was super nice. But
oh, that's cool. I'm paying Fit for free to do nothing. So.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But the nice thing with this is, of course, you can choose your start date. So they can start, like, say, April, and if it's not April, we can always move it back. So that's been a nice thing that we've had, like a little feature that we've had on at the moment. And but we're really happy with the people that we have in now, with the people that we've met already, and we're kind of building our own community, and it's really been nice already.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Very excited to hear about it, because I think obviously you've been going through some tough times with it all, but I do think we'll eventually hopefully get out of this, that we'll get to the light at the end of this terrible tunnel. The last thing I want to ask you about before I get you out of here is just, as an entrepreneur, I kind of touched on this earlier about the resistance of, before you started it and stuff like that. But as an entrepreneur, and then also as a female entrepreneur, I think, like, it's a difficult thing to kind of do. Sometimes I think what happens is you do get that spurt of adrenaline where it's like, no, I'm just going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then if you ride that out, then you can kind of let it carry you, and that's a great thing. But can you maybe just give any advice to other people who might be thinking, listen, because you did one thing your entire life and now you're doing something related, but also pretty different. Mm-hmm. Just any advice that you can maybe give other people who want to start their own business, especially, like you've done it abroad. And then also, for any female entrepreneurs out there, any kind of message you might have for them.
So I just think that you have to have a really solid plan of what you want. You can't start too broad. You have to really focus on exactly what you're looking to achieve. For me, that was a big thing, because I started like, I want to do this. And when you narrow it down and really kind of pinpoint exactly what do you want, like for me, it was like, I want to have the best coaching, educational, awesome gym there is, with really awesome food. So it's like, okay, how do I get that? So it was,
you have 4 businesses,
right? Exactly. So just like making a solid plan, and then making your kind of steps in between to kind of get there. So those small things that you have to do each week, you have to do this, and then you break it down to each day. What do you have to do there? How long could I make it work if this happens?
Contingency plans,
right?
Yeah.
Like just kind of cover all your angles, and I also think that don't be afraid to kind of reach out for help to people, and if you're struggling, and because that's also been something, especially right now, it's like, people want to do everything alone, but I think it's healthy if you're struggling with something to kind of ask for advice or look out for some help or something like that. That's also nice to do. It's healthy to do. Yeah. And I think really just you can, if you have a solid plan and you've kind of gone over all your angles, and you're something that you're also really passionate about, I don't think you can fail, actually. And if you do fail for some horrible reason, at least you gave it everything you got. So
I think you'll definitely be happier that you tried and failed, as long as you don't
100%.
lose too much money.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I'm not in those shoes, but you can lose some money and still look back on it and then be like, actually, that was still a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad that I did that.
Yeah, and if you do everything that you can do for it, there's some times that circumstances are outside of your control, that some unforeseen things can happen, but that's unlucky. And
especially while you're young, man, especially you're only 35, like this could be a total failure and you would have 15 other chances after.
Exactly.
So young people should be taking chances, and of course, like, it takes a while to get the experience to where you can have a plan and learn. That's a skill, to learn how to kind of scale it down and focus on those things. And I definitely think people shouldn't be afraid to take those chances while they're young, and don't bet the farm, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, be smart about it, but it's okay to be uncomfortable, like doing some uncomfortable things. I think now sometimes it's like you kind of stay in your comfort zone, but it's okay to just kind of push out of that and take some risks and take some chances, and calculated risks. Yeah,
calculated risk are key. And then you also said something pretty I think important with about not doing things alone, and this is a difficult time for a lot of people right now, because a lot of people, I think, are alone and more alone than they've ever been. And
Yeah.
I have this one colleague. I saw her the day that I did the first podcast episode.
Oh, cool.
And so, I mean, I'm just like everybody else. Like, I mean, actually worse than some people. I live alone, so it's like sometimes you get kind of down, and
Yeah.
I'll have my ups and downs just like everybody else. And I saw her, and I was on this huge high because I had just done the first podcast episode. And I saw her, and she was like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I'm amazing." And just blah, blah, blah. And she was a little bit kind of disappointed in a sense, because it was like, I could tell she was kind of, struggling with the lockdown and stuff. And so then once I kind of saw what she was talking about, I was like, no, look, 2 days ago, like I was down, you know what I mean? Like I'm on a high right now, because I literally just left doing the first podcast episode. But I think, it's definitely something that if there's ever a time to just open up and, call a friend or do whatever you got to do, don't be afraid to tell them, look, I just needed somebody to talk to.
Definitely. Because also like what you're saying, like everybody is going through these highs and lows.
Yep.
So that's the thing. It's not like, you should be able to talk to each other about what's going on, because everybody's in the same boat, and there's good days and bad days. So.
And it's going to keep going like that. That's what being human is all about, is
definitely
trying to not let the highs be too high and the lows be too low.
Exactly.
Well, Pam, you're an incredibly impressive human being. I'm very happy that I was able to meet you. Thank you so much for
likewise
doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me on. Super nice.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.